The recordings in this video are impact statements that were written by teachers and education support professionals who were displaced from their jobs at the Early Learning Center just prior to the start of the 2020-2021 work year. All of the teachers and education support professionals who submitted impact statements are also members of the Malden Education Association.
This year, 2020, has brought great stress and uncertainties to all of us, and losing my position of 13 years at this time added to the stress. The displacement of my position at the Early Learning Center was devastating. I have been working with the same teacher as a paraprofessional for 9 years. We shared such a strong bond and working relationship that made us a great team. We as team players gave the children and parents such a wonderful relationship. The Early Learning Center was a well-run school with happy teachers and excited students. I feel like I was taken away from my work family, and the students and family left behind are not happy with the situation. I was placed into a different classroom that I am not qualified to train for. I have not received professional development for my new position. I have also been put in danger as I have been in person since 10/13/2020. Happy employees make for happy students, an awesome work environment for all. The Early Learning Center remains broken. We all hope that you will understand what has happened to us all involved.
Some people wonder why we're so upset about being displaced from our positions at the ELC and moved into other positions. Our jobs were saved. We were not laid off. What's the big deal? The reason for the way we feel is because we are still grieving. We are grieving for the loss of our family, a group of people who we worked with for 15 plus years. We're angry at how we found out. There was no consideration given to how this change would be conveyed to the staff involved. For some, they waited for a call from Human Resources, which they never received. The call that came was from the building principal welcoming them to their new placement. For some, it was a phone call later in the evening. It was a phone call received during a family celebration that then marred and overshadowed that celebration. The teachers who were displaced were expected to pack up their classrooms and move to a new room 2 days before the official start of school for staff. As they worried about how they were going to retrieve all of their items from the classroom, they then had to figure out how to teach a new grade level without any support. This was all while taking 10 days of mandatory PD before they would be in front of their class for the first time. We're upset because of how all of this was handled and how staff was informed. We're upset about the lack of support from the district to help us teach our students to the best of our abilities.
The impact of my displacement hit like a ton of bricks. The ELC, like every other school in the country, tried to adjust this past spring to remote learning, and as a result, my coworkers and I worked remotely with our classroom, communicating ideas, strategies, and constantly adapting our lesson plans to what became the new normal for teaching. My colleagues and I spent lots of time sharing ideas and assisting each other with the teaching technology, which was completely new to us all, with the thought that we would be attacking this pandemic and crisis in education head-on together in our virtual classroom come the fall. When I and so many of my colleagues were uprooted so unexpectedly, especially so close to the beginning of the school year, and assigned not only to new schools, but new grade levels, the change was both jarring and shocking. Taking on a new grade level, learning new teaching styles, and learning yet another new set of technology without the assistance of our trusted peers 3 days before the start of our school year was beyond stressful and left very little time to digest what happened. Many of those who were displaced have been working in the MPS and ELC system for many years, and we did not deserve what happened. More specifically, my displacement seemed to be a result of my salary being tuition-based. Yet I was displaced from a position that still exists in the ELC building. My classroom still remains integrated with no interruption in the program. It still consists of a teacher and 2 paraprofessionals. The program remains the same. I was displaced on this technicality while another para was put into my position, which leads me to question why I was moved in the first place. It still does not quite make sense to me that I was displaced when my position remained and I was replaced with someone else. This position was not eliminated. If we are afforded the opportunity to return in the future, how will I be able to? I have not received any answers. At this point, not only does my displacement seem unnecessary, but it removed me from the classroom and coworkers I loved and out of the ELC altogether, where I've worked for over 10 years. The pandemic hit Malden hard, as did every other town, city, and state. The displacement of ELC employees could have been handled in a way with respect to the number of years we have invested in the Malden preschool community and years of training we accumulated. The ELC patterns itself on certain teaching skills that require each of us to coordinate our strategies. We worked tirelessly this past spring to make the transition to remote as seamless as possible, all to be blindsided by this displacement.
I am writing to you today because I am one of the teachers from the Early Learning Center that was displaced. I understand that there is a deficit in the budget, but to displace teachers who have been teaching for 10 plus years, I feel wasn't the best decision. The stress of the pandemic, as well as the move to a completely new position, has negatively impacted my family, physical, and mental health. I am constantly overwhelmed by learning and trying to implement a curriculum remotely that I have no experience or training in. I also don't understand why we were informed of your decision to displace staff from the Early Learning Center just days before the start of school. We have veteran teachers in the district who have families, and to be treated so carelessly was very unprofessional. I understand that you were trying to save our jobs, but the way this all transpired was careless. I also don't understand why we were not offered positions that were a better fit for us, since we have been in preschool for all of our careers. I am not saying that we are incapable of teaching older students within our certifications, but to put us in a position that we haven't had any training in is not fair to both the staff and, most importantly, the children we are teaching. Lastly, we were given a few days to completely clean out our classrooms that we have been in for 10 plus years, which was a difficult task on its own. We had to go in on a Saturday before school began to attempt to finish cleaning out our classrooms. Then find time during the first week of school to transport our belongings to our new classrooms. I have taught in Malden for many years, and I will continue to teach in Malden. Going forward, I would hope that something like this would not happen again. I also feel that when it comes to displacements in the future, that seniority should be taken into account district-wide, and that staff members are given ample time to prepare for their new positions in the district. Thank you for your time.
The superintendent and school committee treated all that got displaced with total disrespect. To be treated like we mean nothing to the ELC, our students, and our community is heartbreaking. To put us in positions that lack the support and proper training to best serve our students is unforgivable.
I had the pleasure of being a member of the teaching family at the ELC for many years. Unfortunately, due to a rushed, unplanned, and last-minute decision of the school committee, the family was torn apart by displacing 26 members of the teaching staff. The displacement not only impacted the individual life of teachers and their family, but it was lasting effect on the other staff at the ELC. The families of students at the ELC have been affected by this dramatic move. Younger siblings whose families were anticipating a particular teacher would guide, mold, and nurture the child as that older sibling was, now do not have the opportunity. The committee really have no idea of the impact the decisions have made and how they affect so many families.
I worked at the ELC for 15 years. I was a very devoted and caring person. I was given the responsibility of teaching and meeting the needs of 3- and 4-year-old children from all sorts of different backgrounds. I gained the trust of students, families, and staff. Last August, I was informed by a very brief phone call I was no longer needed at the ELC, but have a nice day. I was in shock and heartbroken. I could not even find the composure to return my school key. I gave the key to a coworker. The cruelty of my experience will haunt me forever, but you have a nice day.
2 days before I was ready to begin my 11th year at the ELC in my general education classroom, I was told I would be displaced and involuntarily transferred to a class in the district with the most medical complex students, as well as the most challenging students. I was shocked, upset, and furious. I personally had to reach out to administration, introduce myself, and find out which classroom I would be working. The logistics of said classroom and my roles and responsibilities as I had moved up 10 grade levels. My own children and family lost their mother and spouse because I was so upset and blindsided by the entire situation. It made me so disconnected. Here we are approaching November and I'm still impacted. I have zero training in regards to my new position and I do not foresee any of that even taking place. I remain 100% committed to my students as I have done for the past 17 years. I wake up, show up every single day and give 100% my all. I hope that you can find it in your heart that this situation never, ever happens again to another Malden Public School employee. Because quite frankly, while yes, you saved my job, it was done in the most heartless and soulless way.
I have dedicated myself to education. I have always tried to balance family and my job. It is difficult at times because I work with children and they too become a part of me, which in turn I have concerns for their health, well-being, and their education. I feel that you have taken advantage of this. You knew that uprooting us wouldn't stop us from teaching equitably to all students. You were right, but you assumed that we were going to be okay. This is not considered okay. This is doing our best with what cards have been dealt us. People need balance to be great in all areas of their life. You have yet to support us making the balance for our home life versus our job life possible. My entire world has been turned upside down. Many of us were already waiting to hear the direction to how the upcoming school year was going to look. I had never imagined that I would get a call stating that as of the next day, a few days before school was to begin, I was going to be displaced from my preschool classroom of 14 years to a second grade classroom at a different school. I have 2 days to empty a classroom that I have built up for years, working vigorously to be the best teacher for all the students of Malden. I was abruptly moved without training, and while I was willing and happy to hear that there were going to be 10 days of training for teachers, that training did not include what I needed to be the best teacher for my upcoming school year. I was put in a position where I was told that I should be happy that I have a job, but the lack of professional development on top of being moved 3 levels up from the grade that I had been teaching for years should have never happened to me, my coworkers, and hopefully to no one ever again. Going forward, teachers need to be given professional development that will support grade level curriculum. I work long hours and up later than necessary, learning new curriculum on my own, new programs on my own, sharing ideas with others on my team who are already stressed about the new school year, never mind that they are guiding me along as well. I barely spend time with my family, and when I am with them, I'm exhausted and miserable, my anxiety is high, and the overall morale is low. The evidence shows that not only once did you think that the staff that was displaced would work double and how it was going to affect them physically and emotionally while keeping up with the demands of a new position. I know all teachers are sensitive to the needs of their students' home lives and educational needs. I certainly am. Who is watching out for my coworkers, friends, and myself? There is a line that you have crossed as a teacher, a friend, a mother, and a wife. I too have to draw the line to which I give. My family and I shouldn't have to lose out because of my job, and my students shouldn't have to lose out because the district is not supporting changes happening within the times appropriately across the board.
I have worked in education for the last 17 years. 10 of them were spent at the ELC. I began as a substitute teacher and after 1 year was hired as a paraprofessional. The ELC is unique. We are family. If you've never been to the ELC, it's completely different. educational experience. I have had the honor and privilege of educating hundreds of children behind the classroom walls of the ELC, and I have built relationships with families that will last a lifetime. The ELC is often a children's first experience away from their primary caregiver. I worked in general education classrooms and our parents paid tuition for their children. I have had students whose parents moved to Malden because of our program and the quality of education they knew that their children would get. I educated staff members of Malden Public Schools children year in, year out. They lived in different communities but knew our program was superb.